Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest spent more than 15 years inside Fortune 100 companies hiring, managing, and evaluating professionals, and she kept noticing the same pattern. Talented, hardworking people weren't failing because they lacked skill or motivation. They were failing because nobody ever gave them the map for how work actually operates. So she built that map. Laura Massetti is the founder of Real Work Ready, a professional operating training program built around what managers actually evaluate, but what most companies never explicitly teach. After years working inside demanding organizations like IBM and fast growing startups, Laura stepped away, moved from New York to Northern Italy and built the program she wished had existed at the start of her own career. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the invisible rules of work, the unspoken standard, unwritten expectations, and daily behaviors that quietly determine what gets ahead and what gets stuck. Laura, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you again.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So yeah, I want to talk about the invisible rules of work, right? You
Yes.
say you say many professionals fail not because they lack skill, but because they don't understand how organizations actually operate. So what are some of these invisible rules?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll take a step back and kind of share what I think happens. A lot of us have great experiences within the school system, whether your school ends at high school, you go to university, but you learn so much, but it doesn't really prepare you for what it's like to actually be a professional in the real world. And there's no training programs that companies have that prepares you for that. So, what's involved in this invisible operating system is really understanding how you show up to work every day, how you communicate, and how you could be relied on. So, those are the three components that no one really talks about, but they all really make a great professional and help you succeed and accelerate in the workplace.
Yes, you relied on, right?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time? I,
Okay, so you said first there are like three rules,
yeah.
right? First of all, it's how you show up. Second is how you communicate. And then third is how you can be relied on.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So I would actually like if you can, explain more on
sure.
those things actually. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with how to communicate. And that one is challenging for a lot of people, right? Because you are taught in school the best way to write, the best way to potentially public speak. But that translates a lot differently when you start work. So, for example, how do you communicate progress on a project? If your manager assigns a piece of work to you, what's the process for communicating with him or her the status, the updates in the best way? What I found is that a lot of really smart, incredible, and driven early professionals that are coming right out of school, they can create such valuable work and it's successful, right? But the problem is that there is a lack of communication in between or the right sort of professional communication that allows for the progress that you're doing to really be not made explicit to your manager. So you go on producing amazing work, doing a great job, but that's not communicated to your management in the proper way. So then opportunities pass by you because you really haven't made yourself visible in the workplace. So that's one example from a communication perspective. The other piece is how do you become relied on? And managers look to promote professionals that they know that they can depend on, that they can rely on, they can trust their output. So creating the ability to be a dependable, trusting employee. And within my course, we talk all about how that really happens, but that's so fundamental for your career progress.
Wow. All right. So talking about what managers like really evaluate, right? So most employees they think like they are judged purely on output, right? So what are managers actually like evaluating behind the scene?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, a lot of roles within the workplace, for example, if you work in sales, success is really clear. You either sell something or you don't. But for a large part of roles that you will have within the professional world, the expectations aren't as explicit around what success looks like, what a good job works looks like. So that being said, the things that managers are evaluating are a couple of things. There's actually six things that I talk about within my framework. So one is organizational awareness. Is the employee aware of the organizational dynamics, the structures of the organization, the purpose of the organization, and are they working towards that? So that's one that's really important. The second one is execution and follow through. Are you doing something and following through with it from start to finish in a great way? The third one that I just touched upon before is communication and clarity. Are you communicating professionally? Are you clear with your communications? The fourth one is judgment and prioritization. This one's really big because oftentimes you get so overwhelmed with so many projects that you have going on, but not everything is a priority. So, as a professional, are you able to judge what's a priority, what's not a priority? The fourth one is ownership and reliability. That goes back to that point of trust. Can they trust you? Can they depend on you? And the sixth one is professional presence and credibility. And this is probably the hardest one to make clear, but how do you come across professionally? How do you build that professional brand and credibility within the workplace?
Wow. I feel like I've learned a whole lot, right? From just this very short conversation.
Oh, good.
All right. So, talking about like you mentioned the six steps, right? And
Mhm.
I feel like these are often ignored amongst people who just like join an organization, right? So now I know that these are something we should look out for when just joining an organization. And so I want us to talk about, early career mistakes that young professionals make. So, like, what are the most common mistakes you see young professionals make in like their few years at work? Even let's say after they know these six steps you just shared with us, they still make those mistakes. So, what do you think?
Yeah. I think I'm probably an example of the biggest mistake that I see happening with early professionals, but I think it's when I came out of school, I thought I knew everything because you spend a tremendous amount of time studying, working on yourself, and suddenly you come into the workplace ready, excited, and motivated. But the reality is that there's a lot of learning that you need to do when you get there. So that's one. But I think when I was given an assignment from my manager, I just said, okay, yes, I'll do it and I did it. And one big piece that I didn't do was stop and ask for clarity on it. Because a lot of times I didn't know all the details, but I was afraid to ask. I was afraid to not come across as someone that knew what they were doing. And I was so ashamed of feeling like I didn't know everything. So I didn't ask. And what ended up happening to me was I wasn't doing it the right way. And, they would come back with feedback saying, Laura, this wasn't correct. And it was my responsibility to really ask for clarification early on. So I find that a lot with early professionals now that are so eager to contribute, but they don't fully understand the full context of whatever they're working on. So they end up doing something and it's not to par. And I think it's a very easy fix that we can make as long as we're aware of it.
Wow. Okay, so as like young employers, like young professionals rather, it is very important to always like ask questions. And I
Yeah,
understand what you said because sometimes asking kind of makes me feel like I don't know what I'm doing,
I
right?
know. I know.
So I need to actually ask questions and gain clarity. That way I can do the work better and even deliver, you know, properly. Okay.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's great. And what's really interesting about this and the other side is a lot of times our managers aren't clear with us either, right? They'll say, "Hey, go do this."
Yeah.
And you're like, "What? What do you?" But you don't say anything. So at the end of the day, the only person that looks bad in that scenario is you, unfortunately. So, yeah, it's not easy, definitely.
Okay, all right. Talking about managers, right? You've actually been on both sides, both like the managing team and like mentoring professionals, right? So what misunderstanding exists between managers and employees?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things. One, I think that employees think that managers have all the answers to everything. And that's not incorrect. They are humans like all of us. They make mistakes. They usually have a manager that they report to. So whatever pressure that you're feeling or misunderstanding, that's absolutely relatable because your manager feels and understands that as well. So I think that there's a lot more parallels between the two groups for sure. The other piece is that your manager is really looking at you to become someone that they could rely on and make their job easier. So developing that trust, the ability to be reliable is so foundational for how you're going to succeed within the workplace. And managers need that. And you need that trust with your manager as well to be able to ask for feedback and create a really good environment where you can learn and grow together. So I think the lesson is that both the manager and the employee really want to create a healthy channel of communication because they're both just as vulnerable in the manager employee dynamic.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much for that one, actually. And yes, I want to talk about, basically, right, my podcast is for young adults who are seeking to gain clarity on some certain things. That's why we bring professionals like you, right?
Yeah, it's a great mission you have. I love it.
Thank you. So I need you to give advice to, anyone in their 20s who wants to like build a strong career foundation. What should they start focusing on like today?
Yeah. So one, I think that listening to your podcast and listening to other people out there that have perspectives of real workplace scenarios is so, so important because within school, you don't learn much as the what actually happens within work. So speaking as much as possible. Number two is I know that everything is digital now. We're digital right now, which is great. But any opportunities where you can get that in-person time is so fundamental. And I think number three is asking for advice. It is okay not to know everything. I don't know. I feel like I don't know anything every day. But I have established mentors within my life that I can reach out to. Be vulnerable and ask for help. Hey, I saw you wrote this amazing article. It really resonated with me because I have a similar story. Can we go get a coffee? Can we do a virtual meet for 15 minutes? I guarantee you that people are out there that will say yes, including myself. So do that. That's the only way that you're really going to be able to get the kind of coaching, feedback, and relationships that will give you real life perspective.
Well, so yeah, thank you so much, Laura. This conversation sheds light on something many people struggle with, but like they barely talk about. and it all has to like do with how work really works.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so yeah, thank you so much for this. I feel like I've learned a whole lot, and I hope my listeners also would learn from this. And this brings us to my final segment in the podcast. It's called the rapid fire segment.
Okay. All right.
So, starting now, I'll ask a few questions and you just answer rapidly, of course.
Rapidly. Okay. I'm ready.
Okay, so yeah, success at work is really about.
Okay, then I answer. Okay, got it. Success at work is really about if you can be relied on.
Okay, all right. So it's really about being able to be relied on. All
Yep.
right. Okay, so the biggest career myth is.
The biggest career myth is that you need to work harder than everyone else. I truly think you need to work smarter and more efficiently than everyone else.
Wow. Okay, thank you for that one. And yeah, managers wish employees understood.
Understood that you need to be transparent within your communication when you get started because managers not knowing what you're doing or what's going on is really, really frustrating because they have managers that they need to share updates to as well. So be communicative and be clear on what you have going on.
Okay, all right. So yeah, young professionals should stop.
Young professionals should stop with their limiting beliefs. You
Hmm.
have opportunities to meet people, to connect with people, to grow professionally. You just have to focus on the right things. And if you follow frameworks, if you follow advice by people that you admire and really, really make that fully your commitment, you will succeed.
Okay. And yeah, one habit that builds trust quickly is.
Consistency, being consistent in everything that you do, showing up, delivering what you say when you're going to say you do it, and making that pattern. Patterns build behavior, behavior builds trust.
Okay. And yeah, finally, if you want to get ahead, remember.
Remember to continue learning.
Oh,
Always, always, always learn. I'm always involved in a course or something at all times. Never stop learning.
okay, never stop learning. Thank you, Laura. This has been amazing. And yeah, where can listeners get to know more about you and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can follow me on LinkedIn. Every day I'm posting tips and tricks and information for you. Realworkready.com. You can sign up for my email communications. We have a new cohort starting for Real Work Ready program, and I could share more information about that.
Oh, okay. I think I'm interested in that one.
Yeah, I'd love to have you.
I'm interested in that. Okay, so I'll send you a message on LinkedIn actually. So
Perfect. Send me a message on LinkedIn. That's the best way to reach me.
okay, all right. So yeah, thank you so much. And to my listeners, thanks for tuning in to Conversations with Sekani. If this episode sparked something in you, make sure to share to someone who you think might need this and also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes.